We are at the end of a game of Monopoly. All the properties are owned by one or two players who have developed hotels and raised the rent so high that going around the board and getting $200 is not enough to pay the bills. You know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, Monopoly is a board game where you win when everyone else goes bankrupt. So I'll say it again. We are at the end of a game of Monopoly. Now, in 1904, inventor and feminist Lizzie Magie patented the landlord's game, an educational prequel to today's Monopoly. Her aim was to criticize landlords. The irony, right? But it gets better. Charles Darrow later launches Monopoly with Parker Brothers and claims he invented it in his basement and gives Lizzie no credit. Oh, and he named the cheapest properties on his board after historically working class people of color neighborhoods, and the most expensive properties on his board after historically rich white ones. So yes, we are at the end of a game of Monopoly, and the outcomes are reflections of intentional structures and systems done by design. That is to say that our economy is not broken. It functions exactly as it was assigned to function. So no matter how we behave as individuals, until the rules are rewritten, we'll continue to get the same results. Results like the fact that the average Black and Latina household own only 15 to 25% overall net wealth as compared to the average white household. And education, financial capability, employment, and even home ownership do not eliminate this racial wealth gap. And the gaps are growing. Furthermore, the National Low-Income Housing Coalition found that no full-time minimum wage worker could pay the rent anywhere in the United States. What's even more telling is that those that benefit from the system don't recognize their advantage. Psychologists at the University of California, Irvine, invited strangers to play a rigged game of Monopoly, where one player was assigned to be rich, and the other player was assigned to be poor. At the end of the game, the rich players attributed their wins to skill and business acumen. I'll give you one more fact. Studies suggest that economies with more equitable distribution and inclusion actually have better economic results. So how do we get there and out of this game? Before I answer that, I want to share a little bit about myself. I have a master's degree in business administration. I chaired the California Asset Building Coalition. I ran for California State Senate, and I served as secretary for the Pediatric Medical Board of California. All of that is in my resume. What is not on my resume is the fact that as I was growing up, I spent my summers and winters going between the rural jungles of Tabasco, Mexico, and the arts and crowds of Mexico City. That after school, I would go to my dad's auto body shop and take apart car radios. And that as a 10-year-old immigrant girl in Southern California, my idea of fun was to manage a pretend restaurant for which I kept a sales ledger hidden in my desk drawer. Many years later, I was having a conversation with a CEO who told me that he saw business as the great equalizer, at which point he paused and then gently added, "I'm not sure why it hasn't worked out that way." Meanwhile, his workers, mostly workers of color, were wondering the same thing. My experience has made it abundantly clear: nobody wins by limiting another's ability to thrive. Yet our economy and social systems are structured to do this every day, again and again and again. To build an economy that works for everybody, we must facilitate a shared and mutual benefit from our economic activity. Our economy should not be a game of monopoly. It is not a game at all. Our economy should be focused in a sustainable well-being for everybody, not in bankrupting people and planet for the benefit of the few. So how do we get there? What do we do? I suggest 3 foundational steps. 1, recenter. 2, relearn. And 3, repair. Recentering is recognizing that for a mutual shared future, sharing is caring. We have to ask, who benefits the most from the way things are currently done? Whose lives get harder? How do we prevent this harm? These questions lead to difficult conversations. Answering these questions is letting go of what is most expedient, comfortable, and convenient. Answering these questions is embracing love as a civic value. What is love as a civic value? It is the act of ensuring dignity, care, and belonging for everybody when making civic decisions. Love is not comfortable or convenient. It takes time to know somebody and for them to know us, and to use that mutual knowledge not to control and hurt, but to help, heal, build something together. It is inclusive libraries, not book bans. It is a child tax credit without work requirements. To practice love as a civic value is to ensure an active, informed, and participatory democracy. It is election day holidays, ranked choice voting, and diverse representation in boards and commissions. The second step is to relearn, and that's owning our blind spots, educating ourselves, letting go of this is how things are done. For example, at Ventures, where I work, the executive director, and that's me, cannot make more than 3 times the lowest wage worker, who cannot make less than the living wage. Now, I know 3 times may not seem feasible for a global enterprise, but neither is the fact that CEOs at low-wage firms in the US make 600 times that of their workers, according to the Institute of Policy Studies. And speaking of letting go, relearning is letting go of the American dream narrative. The idea of individual effort for individual gain. Let's face it, no amount of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps is going to overcome the trends we just covered. The narrative is a myth. It has only justified the idea of deservedness, why some people deserve to have nothing or be left out alone. And if we're honest with ourselves, we never do anything alone. We have a mutually dependent future. It will take all of us, and our narratives need to reflect this. The last step is to repair. And repairing is acknowledging, atoning, and healing from the harm caused by the genocide of indigenous people and the institution of slavery that built this country, its economy, and its wealth. facilitating and ensuring reparations and land back movements is critical. And we must recognize, however, that we cannot fully repair until we stop causing harm. That means all current institutional and policy-driven harm. Because our biases and privileges, and that of our institutions and processes, do not disappear just because we want them to. To not continue or repeat the mistakes of Charles Darrow, we must be intentional and diligent in this work. What I call the 3 R's: recenter, relearn, repair, are critical in creating an equitable and shared economy. Because our economy is the individual efforts to buy local and the collective decision to vote for reparations. This work is not comfortable or convenient, but neither is the road we are on. We must be boldly imaginative, show grace and humbleness, be the student and the teacher at all times. But most importantly, we must be brave enough to take the first steps together. Thank you.